Disclaimer: the following episode is a conversation between two friends, so it is subject to loud noises and lots of laughter, so please mind your ears. Now, back to our regularly scheduled episode. Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. Voltaire. Hi, hello, and welcome back. Today, it's episode 12 of the Misadventures of the Mind podcast, hosted by me, your clinical child and adolescent psychologist, alias Kalik Nadal. 12. Can you believe that? We out here. And if this is your first time, hey, what's up? Pleasure to meet your acquaintance. Pleasure to bless your ears a little bit on this, I don't know, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Maybe it's the first day of a new month, but regardless of whether you're listening to it for the first time, the second time, the 12th time, well, technically 13 if you count the bonus episode. But with all that being said, hey, my fellow loyal listeners, how have you been? It's probably already officially springtime by the time you're listening to this. I hope your spring has inspired you to also bloom and grow, seek out adventure, seek out new growth in your life, new development. And if it hasn't, well, the spring is like 3 months, so you got time. You know, you still have the chance to feel inspired, get inspired, start moving. And if you really struggle with getting up, waking up, seeing the positive side of things, seeing the growth, and maybe even thinking and believing that you can grow and you can bloom, it's okay. Take your time. Take as much time as you need. Take as much time as you feel like you deserve, because there's no right or wrong time to do anything. There's no right or wrong time to start growing, start blooming. You know, just be you. Just feel whatever you need to feel. Go through the motions, if you will. Today, you know, it's gonna be good, because today, if you haven't noticed, but the title of the episode is Intentionally Blissfully Ignorant. Now, it's a mouthful. There's a lot of adverbs and adjectives. You might think, what is she talking about? Which part is important? Don't worry, we'll explain all of that, but I'm rambling too much. Like, let's get into it. Today I have yet another guest for you, but before I get into who I have today as a guest on this MOTM podcast, you know how we like to start. I have to give you the misadventure of today, and today's misadventure of the mind is one that convinces you that you need to protect your peace during a time of political injustices. Yeah, this one is, listen, I usually say your edges will be snatched, but today, make sure that your edge control is peaking. But anyway, I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to ramble too much. So today's guest is none other than Ms. Kendra. I'm going to go full government. Ms. Kendra Francesca Kock.
Hello.
So I'm not going to do too much introducing, because I like to, you know, give my guests this space and time to fully express who they are. But first things first, she's the realist. She's gonna give us a little snippet into who she is. So, Kendra.
Thank you for having me, first and foremost. It's an honor. I'm an avid listener, so it's just very surreal right now. It's like Kendrizzy in the building. You know, also known as Ali's other half.
Okay,
or
she's
whatever.
Pushing it, but it's whatever.
And yeah, I mean, I'm brought on mainly because of my background in political science and all things activism But yeah, just a little island girl from Aruba. My mom's Trinidadian, so it's like all of the islands mixed in one. I love dancing. I do that in my pastime. It's one of my passions. And I'm pushing 30.
When she says she pushing 30, she literally just made 26 like a couple of days ago.
But turning 27 soon, so time really be flying. But like adulting, all of those things. And yeah, love true crime to the point where it might be a bit concerning.
What she's trying to say, she's obsessed.
Yeah, it's a bit concerning, but
this is an assumption I feel like could have been maybe the reason why you chose the direction of your study is your love for true crime. Am I jumping the gun?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say when I really noticed that I wanted to go into this direction in my studies is colegio.
Okay, and for those who are not from Aruba, it's our high school. It's our pre-vocational high school. I mean, we have two, one of which is Colegio Urbano. Shout out to them.
Yeah. Hey. So yeah, it was in colegio, I think V3 or V4. We had to do like this presentation. At the time, I wanted to go into law because I just like noticed inherently that, damn, I'm like getting triggered a lot by just injustices in general. In my head, I was like, okay, law makes sense. I'm like defending people who are wronged or, and yeah, I just noticed inherently that, okay, I might be more of an activist than my other like
classmates.
Classmates. So yeah, I'd say that.
Okay, that's interesting. And for those who don't know what you're studying, because obviously I know the full exact title of your study.
Listen, don't be lying to the people there.
For those who don't really know your full title, she specializes in, go ahead and say the full thing.
You say. Apparently, you know the whole title, so
okay. So let me educate the people. Miss Kendra Kock, she specializes in security and crisis management, masters, and she has a bachelor in political science. You see, look,
you mixed up the two.
What do you mean?
It was crisis and security first, but it's fine.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Same premise, same direction. And for the people who don't know, including myself, I am people. What does that entail really? Because when I hear crisis and security management, I'm thinking like cybersecurity. I'm thinking like, okay, there's crisis in it, but is it literally world crisis or is it more so very specific and a niche?
It's very broad, so it can entail any disaster, natural disaster, or a corporate crisis. Like we got assignments on, okay, McDonald's, there's a scandal. So there's a crisis department for them because they want to uphold their reputation and not get canceled. Cancel culture, it's
prominent.
Very prominent. So it's kind of all of that. But I understand that a lot of people go immediately to cybersecurity because that is a big chunk of it, but it's not just only that.
And where does your passion lie actually in and this might be like a little confrontational question, but do you feel like your own passion and like what you see yourself doing, is it still falling into the category and niche of what you studied, or is it completely out of the scope of what entails a crisis and security manager?
Yeah, so if I understood the question correctly, it kind of falls into it because at the time that I started the master's, yes, I was a climate activist, but not to the extent that I am right now, and with my knowledge that like adds to that. But at the time, it was mainly COVID was going on. So out of interest, I wanted to understand like, okay, how can governments and institutions better handle a pandemic? And Lord knows they did not do a good job. So kind of jumping into that, like the reason But right now, I would say it still involves crisis management, because a passion of mine is to go more into natural disasters, and because I know right now that that's going to be a norm that we're going to be experiencing. Maybe being in the West, we're not really seeing that, but in the third world, that is a very real thing for them. And that's going to affect us as well. So kind of looking into the future, I want to be a part of that. So yeah, in a way, climate justice-ish falls into my background, but of course, I would like to further my specialization if I really want to get into that.
I think that was pretty clear, and the examples that you also gave, I think those were very clear and very straightforward. I personally don't have a question, but with all that being said, there is something that you also said that kind of stood out to me. I feel like it kind of matches and falls perfectly into the topic of today, and it's when you said that in your class you noticed that you were more so an activist or more passionate about systemic injustices than your other classmates or maybe even friends. I'm curious, were you that annoying friend that would just be like, guys, we need to think about the world? Because I feel like that could be you. And was it you?
I think I'm more annoying now. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess back then it wasn't really a thing. I feel like now social injustices, and with the whole social media movement, people are talking more about these injustices, and not to snatch some edges, but some of y'all just be,
she personally attacking people. Y'all be careful.
ride the wave. Like,
what do you mean?
So, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement.
Okay.
So when that was going on, a lot of people started posting about it, and I am here for spreading awareness. But there was a point where influencers were just doing it to get brownie points. So at a certain point, it's like not genuine anymore. And I'm not saying that everyone is that, but actually, if you're posting about something, do your research and actually care about it. Don't just do it because you want to get those brownie points and you want to, save face. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Because what I understood from what you said is that currently you feel like you're more so that annoying friend and more so delving into social injustices and systemic injustices compared to back then. Do you feel like social media played a role in that, or do you feel like there's another factor that kind of played a role in that?
Yeah, I think definitely social media played a factor, and I just noticed a mistake that I just said, because you pointed that out, is actually no, I feel like back then I was the annoying friend. That makes more sense. Now I feel like that's more accepted. So back then it wasn't really like a why you bringing this up at our pause, during our lunch break. So social media definitely changed the game. And whereas back then it was like not everyone was aware, and social media wasn't really dispersing information in that sense. So there's a double-edged sword with social media, like a love-hate relationship that I have with it. But yeah, I think.
Okay, sure. That's interesting. Okay, so you feel like now it's more acceptable, and I agree. Personally, for me, I'm neither a activist nor non-activist, I guess. Like, I'm not really complacent when it comes to social injustices, but it's also like whenever it comes to like politics or something that is socially not accepted, I'm not really the one to jump on it. You know what I mean? Like when there's Black Lives Matter movement, I did post on social media, and this is not me bring it up in a way that like says that I regret posting about it, because that is something that I do believe in, and I do feel like it is very important, but also I feel like it depends on the type of upbringing that you had. So for me, it was a lot of our parents just making sure that we know like what the world is about. You know what I mean? I feel like like when it comes to the color of my skin, where I was born, like I have a closer and stronger sense of, I don't know what to call it, maybe sense of identity, but also sense of me having to, or the necessity to bring it up if it's something that is going on in the world, you know. But if it's something like I don't know, like right now I'm drawing a blank, but of course we're going to talk about a specific one.
Just wanted to like jump on what you said before of you felt the need to speak up about the Black Lives Matter movement on social media. And you were saying that with other things, you know, like you didn't really post, and I just want to say that's fine, because I do disagree with people who kind of guilt trip others into like, okay, why aren't you speaking up about this issue? And it's like, but you don't know what they're doing behind the scenes.
Right.
You don't know if they're donating and they just don't want to, again, virtue signal that, hey, look at me, I'm donating.
Like boasting about it.
Yeah, so you don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, even if it's talking to their significant other or like immediate family. That's also action. That's like an activist thing to do as well. So I think we should stop doing that. Of course, I love also spreading awareness, and but don't feel like you need to do it for everything, because there's so much things going on around the world that even I'm not well versed in, and I'm not perfect. I can't read up on everything, but you know, I try, and that's all that you can do. So yeah, what I wanted to add, because
yeah,
I see you. I see those.
Yeah, we see you. Even if, you know, you're not active on the socials and all of that, you know, even if you're having a conversation about it, I think that that's good enough. Yeah. Like, I think what Kendra also said, she is big on awareness. And I mean, of course, I am as well. Hence the reason for this podcast. Hence the posting on the socials about different topics. But what I really want to highlight, and I guess what I really want to make clear, but I personally feel like the world is really messed up. Like I said before, there's so many social injustices, there's so many things going on in the world, and like Kendra also said, like, you're just a person, you can't know every single thing that's happening. But one thing that we will be talking about today is the war that is going on between Israel and Gaza, or Palestine actually. And, you know, this is not a he said, she said, they're wrong, you're right type of thing. This is mostly and mainly about whether or not it's better to protect your peace and peace of mind, that is, or is it better to read up on the things, be informed and stay informed, and post on the social medias to bring awareness, or talk about it with your family and friends and colleagues and whoever have you? Is that what we should be doing? Or should we say, you know what, this is really intense and I feel like I can't mentally and emotionally deal with all of it. Maybe I get too invested, or, you know, it'll bring up a very uncomfortable and awkward discussion or argument between the people who I talk to about it. So, you know, that's why this podcast episode is also called Intentionally Blissfully Ignorant. You know, there's a saying, ignorance is bliss. Now, the question is, at what point and where is the line drawn where blissful ignorance is actually an intentional blissful ignorance? When are you intentionally turning a blind eye to what is happening rather than you actually wanting to protect your peace? But you know how we like to do it on this very podcast. Maybe you don't know this phrase at all, so we have to break it down. So I have to explain what it is this phrase, what is the intent behind this phrase, where did it come from, who said it? Much like the quote in the beginning, there's a person who comes up with these things, and the question is, who said it and why did they say it? At what point did they say it? Is it still contextually acceptable to say it? But the person who said it is Thomas Gray, and he apparently was a poet, and in one of his poems titled Ode on a Distant Prospect of Erin College, but it came to in the 18th century, specifically 1742, and the full phrasing of that saying is, where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. Now you're probably wondering, what the heck does that even mean? What is folly? What is ignorance, maybe even? So I'm gonna break it down further. So first of all, ignorance. To be ignorant means to be not knowing, to be none the wiser. You don't know what is happening and you don't really seek to know what is happening. In the case of folly, folly means foolish, to also not really know what is going on. And I like to hit up the good friend of the pod, Merriam-Webster. According to them, folly means lack of good sense or normal prudence and foresight. In other words, a foolish act or idea. Literally, in simple terms, it's dumb. Okay, so to go back to the saying, where ignorance is bliss, aka where you don't want to know makes you happy, 'tis folly to be wise. So if you're happy in not knowing, means that you're foolishly thinking that you are wise. Your wisdom and you thinking that you know what is going on is a foolish act or idea. Don't be dumb. We don't like intentionally dumb people, okay? Like, you can know, and it's perfectly fine to not know. I don't know all the answers. You don't have to know all the answers either. However, to not seek out a truth and to not want to understand the truth is foolish, is folly. It's absurd. It's not really, how do I say this in a nice way, Kendra? She's the golden egg in my friendship, to be honest. Like, she knows how to break it down and make it nice for people. So how would you...
In a political way.
Yeah. Politically correct way.
If you want to be blissfully ignorant, there's no space for you to be wise. It's not a choice. You can't be both. So you're dumb.
Okay, so you're dumb. Don't be dumb. And then what I also found, because of course I literally live for deep dive searching in the web. Like, it is my favorite thing. So of course, like, as I was scrolling and figuring out the definitions, I also found a synonym for folly, and one of it was atrocity. And an atrocity, per Merriam-Webster, means to be wicked, means to be brutal. And I found that really interesting because, to refer back to the quote that I started with, and I'm gonna repeat it, it said, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. So in other words, those who can make you believe foolish, dumb ideas can make you do dumb things. An atrocity isn't a dumb thing. It's worse than a dumb thing. It is something vile. It's something wicked. It's something brutal. Okay, so lovely people, I know you have a lot of information in your brain right now. I'm partially sorry and also not sorry because, knowledge is power, am I right? We gave you the rundown of who Kendra is, what she's studying, what she's passionate about when it comes to social and systemic injustices and political injustices, because she studied political science and she specializes in crisis and security management. Listen, it took me, how long we've been friends? We've been friends for almost 8 years, I think. 8 years. And she did this study 3 years ago, 4, sometime like that. And it literally took me, I was yesterday's years old when I fully got that right. But ask her what mine is.
Clinical child and adolescent psychologist.
Okay, Okay, whatever. She knows me. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I know in description what she's studying. But anyways, so of course I didn't bring her here just for the laughs, just to introduce who she is. Of course, like I said, this episode is very focused and also very niched into the current state of affairs, and that is the war that is going on between Palestine, or the Palestinian people, and the Israeli military. And of course, I wanted to get a perspective of a political scientist, because she said, she's passionate about injustices. She's basically an activist without having the title of activist. She, brings awareness to the people via her Instagram. But yeah, I want to get your perspective on the matter, because not only is it a current matter, dare I say it's something that is trending. And it's been ongoing since, I think, October 2023. The military, or the Israeli military versus the Palestinian people, has been something that has been going on for way longer. But this is the current state of affairs. So my question, has this war brought certain things to light? Has it brought up new perspectives for yourself? And also, and maybe we'll split it into two questions, but also, has it made conversation with other people also a little bit awkward and uncomfortable? Let the people know.
All right. So thank you for that question. So the first half, I would say yes, there's a lot of perspectives, or just in general, new things that I'm learning about humans in general.
Oh, say more. What do you mean?
After, this atrocity that's going on at the moment. And let's call a spade a spade. The genocide that's happening at the moment. I was not aware that it was a topic to be even discussed. And the topic being that genocide, yes or no? I'm so baffled that we're still having conversations with people, or me personally. I don't want to name names, but me having to talk to a family member, and it was surreal to sit down and be like, genocide is bad. What are you saying? And having to convince this person. And of course, being a family member, it can be triggering, because you share blood with this person, and you're like, ooh, I'm trying to be respectful.
As the Caribbeans say it, your blood was boiling.
My blood was boiling. Literally, but it's still important to have these conversations, as awkward as they may feel in the moment. And yeah, sometimes it might drive a wedge, but maybe it's worth it if you get to change someone's mind or someone's perspective. And maybe you can also learn new information, because I have to admit that sometimes, I don't know if anyone can relate, but speaking on my perspective, sometimes you can feel like you're in a bubble,
How so?
like a liberal bubble.
Okay, say more.
Okay. Because I'm probably consuming a lot more different information and media and news than, for example, a Republican or a more conservative person. So I sometimes have to be like, okay, let me try to break out of that bubble and maybe read from other news outlets, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can kind of fall into that trap of
just having
hyper liberal and just only consuming that, because that's also not okay. You also need to see the other side, maybe not agree, but you should also consume maybe that data, or seeing what they're coming up with as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think that is something that most people also fall into the trap of, where it's like, I believe this, so of course I'm going to only consume information that validates this point or validates this argument or feeling that I have, and instead of seeing different sides of the coin or something. So my question, or no, right now I feel like there is a divide between, do you support Israel or do you support Palestine? And I think that personally for me, I feel like that is the wrong question. I feel like the question should be, is this right or is this wrong? Is what is happening right now human? You know, it's like you said, like you saw people in a different way. You know, that's a very politically correct way to say it. So my question is, to go back to that, what if everything that you've been consuming and been reading up on is misinformation? How do you distinguish between, okay, this is reliable and this could be just misinformation and also provided by a specific source that only covers this type of news or is trying to convince you of a certain point of view?
Yeah, that's also a topic I wanted to touch upon today, is that's a very real thing. There's research literally going on right now. The think tank that I worked for, that was a real thing that they were looking into because it's becoming a problem. Misinformation and AI. Oh.
Listen, we're living in the future.
Yeah, it's scary.
You can't trust anything.
It's scary. AI is developing at a rapid pace, and it's producing video recordings that look very, very real. So that's also going to be an issue that we have to take into account. And as we didn't need more, you know, it's like exhausting because the average consumer now of the social media has to be a full-time researcher at this point, you know? Facts. And it's exhausting, but like you said, it's hard to distinguish. And I think every news outlet kind of has their biases as well. So that's a whole other topic that we don't have time to get into. But I'd say really look for news outlets that are really kind of publishing the topic or reporting on the topic in the most straightforward way. With no nuanced high concepts or like terminologies. It's just like facts.
Do you have an example of what that could look like?
So I don't have one in my brain right now, but I remember it being from New York Times. New York Times. I'm looking at you. I literally unsubscribed.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Oh, coming for their edges.
But I can't remember the post. But they were reporting on the war in Gaza, the genocide. And I think a Palestinian, they scrapped out certain words in the headline and placed words that were actually not, so that was objective, if that makes sense.
So it was taking out the assumptions and the subjective words and really replacing it with more objective, more fact-based and evidence-based words.
Yeah, and it was like words that were also inherently racist. It was just insane. And at a certain point, you notice that within not only reportings on the war on Gaza, but also other things. And that really made me unsubscribe because I'm like, I'm not gonna consume a media source that is pushing their agenda.
And that's on period.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're looking to consume something that you say, okay, this might be, safe ground, I would say Raiders. I don't know. I never know how to.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I never know how to pronounce it, but it's Reuters.
Okay.
And
I feel like it's Reuters or something.
Yeah, Reuters.
But Is it a Dutch word?
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
Because if it's Dutch, then it's Reuters.
Reuters, yeah. But I say Reuters because
Okay, now
Anywho. But I feel like that's the the news outlet that I'm like, I feel safest consuming at the moment.
Yeah.
But I'm still looking. Like, honestly, it's so saturated. And then with TikTok, there's TikTok influencers that are now news reporters.
Yeah. I think it's really important, like Kendra said, to not only fact check, but also see what type of writing or what type of writing style they have. Like if it's very subjective, where it's like an opinion versus just stating a fact and stating something that is just an objective observation, for example, I think those are things that you can definitely use in your search. Like you said, some people defend their agendas. Some people, they're gonna write it in a way to make them or the situation look a lot better than it actually is. Earlier, instead of saying the war in Gaza, you said genocide. And I think that was, maybe it wasn't even intentional, but I thought that was a very interesting and brave way to say it, but also really honest, because it is a genocide. It is factually a lot of children and mothers and fathers and elderly people who are dying. And it's not dying because of old age. They're being murdered. And that's not to say that, we're siding with Palestine. Like I said, the question isn't, are you pro-Palestine or are you pro-Israel? It's what is happening. Both sides can have arguments for we're being killed, we're being massacred, we're being hunted, basically. So it's not about, what side are you on? That doesn't matter. Be human. What is happening? How can you help? So that's a question for yourself. What are you doing to help? What are you doing to educate yourself? And do you feel like it's enough? And that comes back to my question. Where is the line between being intentionally, blissfully ignorant and protecting your peace? It's kind of crazy. And maybe, Kendra can also speak on this. But in my eyes and in my head, it's like every couple of years, maybe even every century, we're just repeating history.
That was heavy. Honestly, yeah. Like, you would think that we get history classes to not... Like, history is a course. It's a thing that people study, not to recreate it, to learn from those lessons. But it's like... you're falling back into that
in the same pattern,
perpetual cycle. So yeah, I definitely do agree. And to touch upon the title of today, I really appreciate that you included the word intentional, because the actual phrase is being blissfully ignorant. But you including intentional is something that's very real and that's happening right now. And to answer your question, it will always be intentional. That's because we have the privilege to have the internet, have running water, have electricity, right? But mainly the internet in this sense. We have access to a lot of corners of the world and information in general. The other side to that coin is people who are less fortunate. Their ignorance is circumstantial. They don't have internet. They're in rural areas where they're not in contact with all of this information. So for us, it's always going to be intentional because you have that choice.
Oh, Kendra just out here snatching all of the edges.
I know, I'm sorry.
You're choosing to be blissfully ignorant. Yeah.
No, but I was going to say, I understand the appeal to choose ignorance or to be blissfully ignorant, or to just protect your peace like you mentioned. I understand that because it's a lot. And news outlets, they're always gonna post the negative because that gets clicks, that gets likes, that brings revenue. So it's a shame that also you're not showing that, the world's also not that bad. There's also good things happening, and specifically good things happening in terms of climate change. it's still bad, but
Right.
there's also like more development going on and technology that's gonna help us. So why not also, show that and make people feel like, okay, we have
It's
to
not the end of the world.
Yeah, we have to do more, of
Right.
course, but we're also making strides. I was saying, like, yeah, I understand the appeal. At the same time, we have to face the ugly truth that is a privilege. It's a privilege to turn off your phone and be like, okay, I'm done consuming.
Yeah.
Because other people are living it.
Yeah,
They're literally starving. They have no choice but to have this always on their mind. So let's not shy away from that privilege, that very real privilege that we're living in right now.
Yeah.
And hopefully that changes a lot of listeners' minds. Like, oh, damn, I didn't know I had that privilege. And let's do better.
Yeah.
And I would always advocate to be informed, and not only relating to politics or global issues, but also just the local news. Where you're living at right now.
Yeah.
Do you know what's going on? That's beneficial to you. Because at the end of the day, we're freaking adults. We're at the age where we're buying houses.
Yeah.
Some people I know are mothers.
Yeah.
You're raising a child. You're making these financial decisions.
Yeah.
So you should be informed.
So I'm going to bring it back to what you said, because we're specifically talking about the Gaza situation. And what I appreciate is that you said that it is a privilege. And I think for you as well, listener, do you realize, do you notice, did you conceptualize the fact that you are living a very privileged life? It's just a simple fact that we have access to information. It's the fact that we can decide, like you said, Kendra, to switch off and say, I don't want to consume this anymore. Or decide for ourselves, and it is a conscious and intentional decision to not do anything about it and to not consume the information or consume the facts and realities of others around us. And I think what also happens, and I feel like I've also been subject to this, where I feel like because it's not happening to me or doesn't have a direct influence, let's say, on my life or my quality of life, better said, then I feel like, okay, then I don't really need to put in as much effort or energy into either staying informed or doing something about it or whatever have you. So I think that, that was also a point for myself to realize, like, it's a tough pill to swallow, don't get me wrong, but even if something bad is happening to somebody else, doesn't take away the fact that you can do something about it. But all that being said, coming back to the point of the question and the main focus of the episode as well is talking about it and bringing awareness. So then my question for you, Kendra, how do you feel is the best way for people to make aware their stance on things? Or let me put it to you, how do you show your stance on pressing matters of societal and also systemic situations and or occurrences? For example, the war in Gaza, but that aside, just in general.
Well, I think first thing that comes to mind is social media. I don't think you would see me on the street and be like, she's an activist,
right,
she loves the planet,
right.
She's sustainable. And I don't think it's necessary. Of course, if you feel the need to, I mean, by all means. And the most extreme side of that coin is also like wearing a MAGA hat. Right. You know exactly that person don't like black people. And he's choosing to make that known. So it's like, but for me, also conversations I'm having with people. Of course, I'm not gonna proclaim that in every conversation that I have with a person or a colleague, but it can be talking about LGBT rights. And hearing the other person maybe not understanding it as well and kind of showing their prejudice, I can make that known, but in a very not neutral stance, but not that I'm attacking that person either, but making it known that... So
you're giving them space to also have a different perspective.
Yeah, because I think that's also important, because then we're creating that safe space to maybe make mistakes, and then on hearing their stance and also coming from a point of grace, hearing them with grace, and then hopefully kind of seeing both sides, and hopefully that person can feel conviction and be like, yo, not every black person is like this, for example. So having those conversations and showing up with grace is important.
Do you feel like, because of course that's like an ideal situation, but do you feel like that is something that you personally have experienced?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
And it's like with the specific family member that comes to mind, because we're both very political, and I think we're like opposite sides of the coin, but there's still love there. So it's just very weird. And yeah, it's hard sometimes. God really be testing me to practice patience and to not be as triggered, you know. And hopefully that person can also be the same, because it's hard because sometimes you feel like you're talking to a wall. And it's not, whatever you're saying, it's not getting through. So yeah, I have experienced that. There were points that we had to walk away because it wasn't getting anywhere. And it's a new fresh day, so then we're like, okay, let's like get back on this,
let's reconvene.
But I wouldn't say it's a daily thing. I think I'm fortunate to have people around me that we can be honest, and we feel safe to be honest and not feel judged, because it's fine to be wrong. Right. You know?
Yeah. Why are we trying to convince the other person to believe what you believe, you know? And if this is you and you feel like, you know, I'm talking to you, I probably am. And, you know, this is not a personal attack, but more so you can ask yourself the question of, why do you think that someone should agree with you? Or if you disagree with something, that they should also do the same. Then we're just creating like this robotic type of mindset, and I don't really like it. You know, everyone is unique, and being unique means respecting and also accepting the fact that they'll think and have a different mentality than you. But to go back again, to go back to the fact of having conversations that, you know, kind of trigger you. When you use that word, you know, the psychologist in me just be there. So I have to ask, what part of conversations like that trigger you the most?
I think the most...
Or what is the thing that triggers you? Not like the most, but just in general. What is that thing that actually triggers you?
I think just when I see someone showing prejudice towards any minority, like it can be POCs or indigenous people, and then I'm seeing their prejudice against them. It can come to in the form of, get out of my country, like, you know, like that. That's where I'm just like the most triggered. Yeah, because I notice in myself that is one of my aspirations, is to get a career, hopefully, in the future. We're manifesting it, that where I can do research and empower those who don't have a voice in society. Another one would be climate change and just sustainability in general. I'm trying to come at it with grace. But there's some people that genuinely don't believe in it. And those are the toughest ones.
Don't believe that there is a problem in like global warming, for example.
Yeah.
Or
They just genuinely don't believe the scientific data that's coming out.
So if I understood you correctly, I think that your biggest trigger, especially in these conversations, is probably the intentional ignorance bliss of it.
Yeah.
Or not the bliss, but just the intentional ignorance, where it's like there are signs and symptoms and just evidence just in general, and people still choose to have a blind eye, or they choose to say, no, that's not real. Fake news.
It's the more of like, that's not real. And the idea of not even wanting to read my sources or fact check that. And it's people who come with it in a sense of like you said, just like they're wise. And that it's folly. Right. It's just that I think triggers me.
That I think that really sums up the reasoning why you feel mostly triggered, but also sheds a light in your passions, which I think I love listening to people talk about their passions personally. Like, it's even if it's not something that I'm personally passionate about or dare I say care about, but I do enjoy listening to other people's passions because, it just shows who they are more. And it also gives a different perspective on things. So, with all that being said, I obviously have a question. It's a two-parter. I feel like I do want to say the thing before I ask my question, because looking up a fitting quote for the episodes, like I obviously like to link it to the topic of the episode, right? I came across this quote from James Baldwin. And if you're not familiar with who James Baldwin is, first of all, shame on you. No, this one, it's really just shame on you. But also not really, because no judgment here. But James Baldwin, he's a Black American author. He's written so many books. He's, to be honest, one of my favorites because the way he writes his books, beautiful. It's like I remember reading one of his books for the first time when I was maybe 14 or 15, and it's this book, If Beale Street Could Talk, and I was blown away.
That's such a good one.
So the quote from James Baldwin, it goes like this: "It is certain in any case that ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy justice can have." So, Kendra, number one, what's your take on the quote? That's part one question. Part two, do you believe in the justice system?
Heavy, but
it is quite heavy, and I was doubting, going back and forth. Should I? Shouldn't I? But I feel like the podcast, I created it with the intent to have these deep, honest, and harsh conversations. And I feel like me shying away from a question like this and a topic like this is doing this podcast a disservice. So,
yeah. I mean, this is a word. Like, I've never heard this quote before, but I think it would definitely stay with me because it is, unfortunately, a reality we're living in. People in power this moment who are calling the shots, they are ignorant in their own right. It's very saddening. It's upsetting. Just someone like you who isn't in the political space, and sometimes when talking to my significant other and he's not really in the space, you guys put it so simply and so nice because you guys have a refreshing perspective, and it's so nice to hear those perspectives. Like you said, there's a genocide. There's no sides that we need to take. It's just simply choosing to be human and have compassion. And unfortunately, people in power, they aren't seeing it that way. They don't want to. Again, being intentionally ignorant. And these people are making our policies.
Yeah.
And they're running our countries. And it's just very pessimistic, and it's sad.
Okay. So what do you think can be done, if anything can be done?
First of all, as just a citizen, having the basic right to vote is a start. Because I understand now with the younger generation, they do see that as in a more pessimistic light.
What makes you think that?
Well, just simply a lot of people not voting.
Okay.
And saying that, what is my little vote gonna do? And there's just a lot of distrust in the government, and rightfully so, because it's just a mess. It's just a mess. But I think we should still continue to practice that right, because it's a basic right. Again, it's a privilege. Some people don't have that. And in history, there are also very close elections. So you can make a difference. But also vote responsibly. Like, I'm not saying, like, go out and then just
do like
whose name sounds more appealing, or actually do your research, sit down and be like, okay, who am I connecting more with? And also maybe you want to see a person of color representing you and shining a light on issues that you're going through. So that is, I think, the basic thing that comes to mind as a citizen. And sometimes, personally, it feels like overwhelming, because uiteindelijk, like, in the end, the higher ups, they have so much power.
They do. They really do.
I'm also trying to grasp that, but I'm still not trying to make it a driving force and to discourage me as well, because I know that I can make a difference. Everyone should also still have that thought, because I might not be able to make a difference, but if we collectively come together, that is a show of force. And in our own right, power. So it's hard, man. It's hard. It's a heavy topic. It's heavy to also grasp. Be the best version that we can be and inform others, stay informed. But also, if you're feeling news fatigue, because that's a very real thing, if you're feeling it, that's a good thing, because then your brain is signaling that, that's when you should take a step back and touch grass, or whatever the saying is. Take a walk and, get back to, because this podcast is eventually about mental health. So this is a form of realizing that sense of prioritizing that as well, because in life you need a balance.
Absolutely.
Everything needs a balance in all aspects of your life, so in this case as well. But don't let it get to the point where you avoid the news completely. Like, that is where it gets dangerous for me, and I'm just not okay with. So let's not get there, and let's create a good balance that feels right for you.
Right. Don't become complacent. Like you said, news fatigue is real. And I think especially when it hits close to home, I always think like, this is gonna trigger me, and not trigger and like make me upset, but more so sad, because I can see myself, or my husband, my dad, my mom, my little brother. So it really comes from protecting my peace of mind type of thing. But like you said, it's really important to stay informed, and also, I'd say, hone in on your privilege of having access to information. Like, you don't need to do it every single day for hours or anything. But if you are in one way or another, being via TikTok, the actual news channels on TV, Facebook, Instagram, or even just talking to someone, your neighbor or whatever, colleague, that should be enough. I feel like I do still in some way want to protect my peace, you know what I mean? But if you're more like Kendra, that's also fine. Like we said, and we also encourage, is to create space to disagree and to create space to have a different stance or point of view of things.
And like, if you don't mind me asking, is there a specific, aspect of what's going on right now that you're not fully aware on, or just don't believe in terms of data or anything, any aspect?
That's a good question. Specifically, nothing comes to mind. However, I do feel like, and this is not a concrete argument for or against, but I do realize in other people, if you share a thing, let's say I share a post about like what's going on in Palestine or in Gaza with the Palestinian people, then people automatically think like I'm pro this or against that. And the fact also that I am a Christian, and a couple of days ago you also posted something about like why American churches aren't doing something. It wasn't like your post specifically, but a shared post from another,
I think it was a news source as
like
well.
news source. They were making the argument that Christ was also a radicalist and that he also stood up against the system. Why isn't the American churches also standing up for it? They concluded and inferred that because they're not actively standing up or actively showing that they support the cause, that they don't care, or that they're choosing to be complacent. And I feel like if I also do the same, then I'm not doing it because I want to do it, but I'm doing it to prove that I am fully believing the thing. And I feel like personally, I don't know what information I'm missing, but I do feel like I don't have enough information to post about it, if that answers your question.
Yeah. And I think specifically to that post, it was criticizing how American churches, they do feel comfortable actively funding Trump and the more conservative side, but then on a simple matter of supporting a genocide or not, it's odd that they're not as vocal. So I think specifically that was like a niche criticism to that, but if you don't feel as comfortable, and then no one should force you. Like, look, it's like your choice, and you shouldn't feel guilt tripped to do it either. Because we don't want people to be posting willy-nilly, but
it's just tough, man. Like, whenever it comes to what's going on in the world and what our society has come to, like I said, I just feel like it's always history repeating itself. It's always the same pattern, just a different face, a different color, but a circle remains the same circle after 200 years. People are saying like, and this is also just a tangent, but also conversation for another day, when people are kind of upset or they disagree that people of color should let go of the slavery thing because it was so long ago. And it's like, 400 years. In retrospect, technically, relatively, it is long ago. But if you compare what happened then to now, I always believe, and I always say, modern day slavery, it's just the same circle with a different color. It's the same pattern, it's the same type of routine. But again, conversation for another day. And if you want to hear more about that, if you want to hear more about, the perspectives of a political scientist, be it another topic, please let me know in the comments, in the review that you're leaving, the 5-star review, manifesting the 5-star review on Spotify, manifesting that like button on YouTube if you're listening to it on YouTube. But don't try to shy away from the question. Do you believe
Oh, yeah. Oh my god, I forgot. Okay.
the justice system?
No. Just
Yikes.
Plain no, period. That's a full sentence. I've consumed so many true crime episodes. I've seen so many cases, heard so many cases around the world. And unanimously, the justice system will never side with the oppressed. It's just very rare that you see the victim being fully avenged. It's messed up because it's very complex. It's a complex issue because there's so many things going into it. Money, corruption, but yeah, and also very relevant right now is, does the international law work? Like, is that even a thing?
Right.
'Cause
what is international law for the people who don't know?
Right. So
I am people yet again.
So basically it's the law where countries or the world can be held accountable with, right? So a basic example recently was South Africa taking the Israeli government to court. This happened in The Hague, like very close to home right now.
Yeah.
So it's very relevant. They won the case, but still people are like, is it effective? They're still committing atrocities.
Yeah. So it's all talk but no action to back it up.
Yeah, and I guess it's okay to have like these systems in place, but if it's not actually creating change or holding these people truly to war crimes that they're committing, then it's not effective. Then it's very volatile. That's also a subject for another day because it's so complex as well. And sometimes I even get lost in the semantics because it's just,
It's a lot. And what do you think needs to be done for you to believe in the justice system?
I think we should have more diversity in people who are creating the laws. Because we rarely see that a black judge or more black policymaker, and I think that is an easy way to enact change, because they're obviously gonna see sides that white Caucasian
Mostly
people,
male.
mostly male, are not gonna see, and they're gonna probably intentionally and wickedly ignore for their own gain. Perpetuate that cycle of injustice. They're gonna do it because it benefits them. It benefits their race. So I think we need to start there. It's getting better, but it's
still not there yet.
No, it's not there yet.
Do you have anything else that you want to let the people know?
Yeah, so I think overall, I want to push that idea that we shouldn't shy away from talking about these topics, whether that be with your family members or your significant other or a colleague. Because I know, coming from Aruba as well, politics can be a nasty thing. It causes divide. It just has negative connotations. But I think we should try to just shy away from that and accept that, like you said before, accept that someone's probably going to have a different view or a different opinion. But let's just talk about it together and share each other's perspectives. And maybe you can see someone's side and they can see yours, and we can kind of build a safe space for spreading awareness. Also, maybe an action that you can take to be just more informed. Hopefully, by the end of this podcast, you can feel that push to be more informed and not, choose to be ignorantly bliss.
Don't be dumb.
Don't be dumb. So hopefully that is how you're feeling right now. You're feeling empowered. What now? Well, I think let's create a balance where, like I said before, it doesn't lead to completely avoiding the news. So I think if you can, every day or every 2 days, just dedicate like 30 minutes out of your day. It doesn't have to be an hour, 2 hours, just to read up on local news, on what's going on, or maybe you're specifically targeting a topic that you really want to search up on, just global politics in general. Just dedicate 30 minutes out of your day, and I think that starts to really show a difference, and to also just, don't be dumb. It makes you less dumb.
Yeah.
It's kind of...
Just be intentional with the information that you're consuming. Yeah. Little steps, like Kendra said, like even if you don't have 30 minutes, like 5 minutes on a topic or something that you even saw in the news by accident, or someone questioned you about it or asked, oh, what do you think about XYZ? And maybe you didn't even know that X, Y, and Z was happening. That's also your chance to inquire about it. Ask them, or you can go home and look it up yourself. But definitely have an open mind to receiving information and receiving the right information. That's also important, but also receiving grace and respect when you do find a specific topic or niche that you want to talk about, and maybe even find a specific crowd that you can discuss about certain topics with. So, you know, just be curious. Listen, we took you on a journey today.
It was a heavy one.
It was definitely a heavy one. I hope, listen, check a mirror right now. How are your edges doing? Are you okay? Listen, if you had to pause this episode a couple of times, I understand. Not just because of the length of it, but also the topic at hand. Because it is, you know, like Kendra said, coming from a small island, we typically shy away from conversations like this, from topics like this. But it is a reality, so why not put it in the spotlight and actually discuss the topic? Maybe you don't have a stance, that's fine. And maybe you do, that's also fine. But definitely make it a conversational thing. Bring awareness. But as I said, we're not gonna continue because you've been here long enough. You know how we like to end it. So today I'm going to ask my lovely guest Kendra to read the affirmation for us today. Kendra, take it away.
I am a free human being, empowered to share this earth peacefully with all of existence.
Thank you. Beautifully read. And you know, I never forget my Bible readers out there. And today's verse can be found in Proverbs 21, verse 15. And it says, when justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous, but terror to evildoers. Proverbs 21, verse 15. So yes, as I said, there was a lot of information, there was a lot of opinions, there were a lot of things that we discussed and also didn't discuss due to the time. So, you know, we're trying to keep you in mind. But as always, you know, if this is a topic that tickled your brain, made you think, made you question where you stood in this reality that we're living, discuss it. Share it on all platforms that it is shareable. WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok even. Leave a nice comment. Tell me what you thought. You can scroll down if you're listening to it on Spotify. If you're a YouTube audio listener, also click the like button, click the comment section. Let me know your thoughts, your feelings. You know, I love to hear all of it. I'm very open to feedback, and I definitely want to improve this podcast. And as per, I've been your host, alias Kalik Nadal. Again, I want to thank you, my fellow loyal listeners, for tuning in. And with that, I'd like to leave you and hope to inform you on another episode. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.